Body-mind connection, a self-reflection of psychological profile, type A plus B personality traits, and pathophysiological journey, number 1330, August 19, 2025, EclaireMD Foundation, Gerald C. Shu, category, psychology, and pathophysiology, a self-reflection. Over the past 2 decades, I have experienced 5 cardiovascular episodes, from 1994 to 2004, and, most recently, on June 21, 2025, a hemorrhagic stroke. When I look back at these health crises, I realize that the personality, traits and psychological patterns I carried since childhood played a decisive role in shaping my later health. 5 cardiovascular events between ages 37 and 47, and a stroke at age 78. This is both a painful recognition and an important scientific observation, since the connection between mind and body is often underestimated. In today's healthcare system, there remains a solid wall separating psychotherapists and medical doctors. I have always been an intense and driven person, even from childhood, what many would call a type A personality. My educational and professional path, from elementary through high school, I was consistently at the top of my classes. My college education, however, was not straightforward. I failed my first entrance exam and entered a mediocre university, but I refused to give up. I went through 3 colleges, earning 3 different degrees before being admitted to MIT, the top engineering school in the world. To achieve this, I knocked on the doors of 18 professors, facing rejection every time, until the 19th, Professor Norman Jones, finally accepted me, 7 months past the application deadline. At that time, I had only $1,000 in savings, earned from cleaning more than 1,000 toilets. This was barely enough to cover either 1 month of MIT tuition in 1972, or 1 month of living expenses in Boston. After MIT, I continued studying 3 different academic disciplines at 3 different colleges, while working as a full-time engineer. Later, I devoted 9 years to self-studying psychology and 16 years to internal medicine. My entrepreneurial years were even more colorful and challenging than my academic days. I worked as an engineer for 8 years in the defense and power industries before moving into computers, IT hardware, and software, including what we now call AI. I built the world's lightest portable PC, a briefcase-sized machine, weighing 12 pounds, started a linguistics-based AI product, similar in concept to today's ChatGPT, and developed AI-based automatic design tools for architectural, mechanical, and semiconductor engineering. As an entrepreneur, I failed 7 times due to early timing, lack of funding, and limited business experience. From my MBA training, I learned that business management and human relationships are necessary, but not sufficient for ultimate success. In my AI integrated circuit design software company, I eventually employed 2,000 people, including 1,200 top-tier engineers. Of those engineers, about 80%, nearly 1,000, held PhDs from the top 5 universities in electronics engineering and computer science. Managing such highly intelligent and strong-willed individuals required quicker pattern recognition and sharper judgment abilities than theirs. This ability allowed me to build a top-ranked company, and, in 1995, to rise to the position of the first and most accomplished Asian American CEO on Wall Street. Yet it was during that period of peak professional achievement that I began to suffer a series of health issues, including 5 cardiovascular episodes. Turning point. Eventually, I sold my high-tech enterprise and shifted my focus to self-studying psychology, while also launching charitable programs to support hundreds of abandoned children and abused women. In 2010, when I faced near amputation of my right toe from diabetic neuropathy and kidney failure, I stopped my psychological charity work and turned to endocrinology. This time to save my own life. Over the past 16 years, I have produced 1,330 medical research papers, sometimes at a pace of 1 every 1.5 days. I set high standards for myself and live with a constant sense of urgency. Without a boss, teacher, colleague, or medical institution. While this determination fueled my research, it also exposed me to new stressors outside academia. My accumulated wealth from my past high-tech success, carefully reinvested into high-value global real estate, became another source of stress. I believed real estate carried lower risks than stocks or cryptocurrency, but I was blinded by the constant strain of dealing with manipulative professionals. In this particular sector, this psychological stress, combined with my aging vascular stiffness, culminated in my hemorrhagic stroke on June 21, 2025. During the past 2 months of recovery from cognitive and partial memory loss, I have conducted deep soul-searching into my past and my personality traits. This article is part of that reflection. My personality traits. My personality has always been built around sharp pattern recognition and a strong sensitivity to other people's intentions and behaviors. This strength has served me in both industrial innovation and medical research, but it has also created vulnerability, a typical double-edged sword. I have very low tolerance for dishonesty or unethical behavior, and when I confront such situations, my body responds with intense emotional surges. For many people, such episodes might pass without lasting consequences. For me, they trigger dangerous spikes in my blood pressure. Pathophysiologically, this makes sense. Years of relentless drive, perfectionism, and stress exposure in combination with aging have hardened my blood vessels, increasing vascular stiffness and widening pulse pressure. This chronic background explains my 5 cardiovascular episodes. On top of that, acute stress, moments of anger or frustration, sent my blood pressure soaring. I have documented readings as high as 175 millimeters of mercury at the emergency room. It was exactly such a surge, on June 21, 2025, that ruptured a vessel in the pons area at the back of my brain and caused my hemorrhagic stroke. Yet I must also recognize the protective side of my personality. My long-term vision. 8 years ago, I deliberately moved my residence closer to a major hospital. It was a precaution rooted in my pattern recognition, my intuition that I would someday need its emergency care. On the morning of my stroke, I recognized the symptoms myself, not through formal medical training or clinical experience, but through my 16 years of self-learning medicine and self-observation of my own body. I arrived at the hospital within 1 hour, which saved my life and spared me from paralysis or death. That decision, born of foresight and discipline, gave me a second chance, living after stroke. Since my stroke, I live with less intensity but greater awareness. I measure my blood pressure 24 to 32 times a day, with 2 devices linked to my iPhone. Every reading above 130 millimeters of mercury is analyzed and documented. My average systolic pressure now stays around 115 millimeters of mercury, with a pulse pressure of about 43. My hypertension rate, above 130 millimeters of mercury, is under 5%, with the highest recent spike, 143 millimeters of mercury, occurring during a stressful conversation with my estate lawyer. This reminded me vividly that stress tied to money, disputes, or interpersonal issues has a direct and dangerous impact on my physiology. At this stage of my life, reputation, fame, power, and money mean nothing to me. What matters is stability of health, physical, emotional, and spiritual. By reducing unnecessary contact with toxic stressors, I am lowering the risk of another catastrophic event. My glucose remains steady, with hemoglobin A1C at 5.9 to 6.3%. Before the stroke, I walked about 12,000 steps per day. Immediately afterward, I dropped to about 2,000 steps, but have since gradually increased to 7,400 steps per day. In the past 2 months, I have read 3,000 pages of medical literature, and written 25,000 words of new research. Persistence is essential, and I can already feel my neuroplasticity at work. Neurons once lost are being bypassed, repaired, or rebuilt through new pathways. My type A traits. When I step back and evaluate myself, I can clearly see how my personality fits the description of a type A person. Typical type A traits. 1. High drive and productivity. I have written over 1,300 medical research papers, often producing one every 1.5 to 2 days, which reflects extreme ambition and persistence. 2. Perfectionism and high standards. I set very strict expectations for myself, whether in research accuracy, formatting, blood pressure, measuring, or daily health and memory capacity tracking. 3. Urgency and efficiency. I measure my blood pressure from 24 to 30 times a day, log reasons for hypertensions, and optimize routines with great precision. 4. Strong response and avoidance to stressors. Emotional stress, especially caused by unethical behavior or inefficiency, has triggered hypertension and even my stroke. 5. Competitive and self-driven. I prefer working alone, rather than in institutions, because I believe I can produce results faster without external interference. Balanced or non-type A traits. 1. Long-term patience. Despite my intensity, I have dedicated decades to building knowledge, health tracking, plus psychotherapy and scholarship programs, which shows endurance beyond short-term urgency. 2. Strong altruism. Unlike the stereotypical type A who is mostly self-focused, my mission has always been to save lives, prevent diseases, and educate others. 3. Self-reflection. I actively analyze my own vulnerabilities, such as stress, leading to stroke, and I adjust my lifestyle and mindset to maintain balance. In truth, I am type A in drive, discipline, and stress reactivity, especially in how my body responds to psychological triggers. At the same time, I also carry qualities that belong to type B, such as patience and research, compassion for others, and long-term resilience. I would describe myself as type A plus B, but with a reflective and altruistic side that prevents me from being purely competitive or aggressive. Reflection. Looking back, I see clearly how my psychological profile and personality traits shaped both the damage and the recovery. My type A intensity, stress reactivity, and intolerance for unethical behavior directly contributed to vascular damage, 5 cardiovascular episodes, and my recent stroke. Yet the same intensity, discipline, and persistence are now powering my recovery, driving me to rebuild my brain function and deepen my scientific understanding. This is the paradox of my personality. The very qualities that nearly destroyed me are also the ones giving me the strength and hope to recover. My journey demonstrates how tightly the mind and body are linked, and how important it is for each of us to recognize this connection in our own. Disclaimer: this content is for educational reference only and not medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be edited or republished as your own.